In this section, we're going to be looking at a platform called WordPress. WordPress is what's known as a content management system, or CMS, and it's essentially a way of managing your site, which in theory avoids the need for code entirely. It was originally developed for blogging and allowed people very easily to add new blog posts, change the style of their blog without any knowledge of HTML or CSS at all. It's developed since then though into a whole website management tool and now powers an astonishing 25% of all websites. I'm going to recommend that you get to grips with it because it's free, it's easy to use, there's a huge amount of support online, and you can make great looking sites that your clients will be able to update and manage themselves. Excited? I hope so. Let's get cracking. To use WordPress, you need a web server. And of course, you're very lucky that with the Complete Web Developer course, you get a year's web hosting for free. So if you haven't set up your first hosting package yet, then go to the hosting section of this course and follow the instructions there. If you've done that, go to ecowebhosting.co.uk/cp/manage hosting. And that should list the domain names that you've set up. The one that I'm going to be working with today is one called a WordPress-test-domain.com. And if I click on that, it'll open up the control panel for this test domain, and I'll be able to install WordPress directly from there. Most web hosts do have this functionality, so if you're already set up with a different web host, I'm sure you'll be able to do the same thing with them. With Eco Web Hosting though, scroll down. We'll be installing the full version of WordPress, which we can use for blogs or any other website. So the only option we need to put in is where we want to install WordPress. So you may have already uploaded some files to your hosting package. So if you have, I'd recommend installing WordPress in a subdomain. So that can be anything you like. It could be blog or website or whatever, but I'm going to call it WordPress. So just put WordPress in there. The slash at the end is optional, but then click Install Now. And what that actually does is creates a database and some PHP scripts, which we'll be looking at in the next section, to allow WordPress to run on your site so that you can complete the install process. Now the first link will only work if you've purchased the domain name. If you haven't purchased the domain name, you'll need to use the temporary URL, that is the second link. And that will work regardless of whether or not you've purchased the domain name. Alright, so if everything's gone well, you should see this WordPress installation page. It's all fairly straightforward. You just put your site title. So I'm going to put example WordPress site, but you could put whatever you like there. Your username, I'll go for Rob Percival, but again you can put whatever you like. And then password, so I've got one automatically generated for me here. I'll leave that as it is. And then your email address, I'll put rob@robpercival.co.uk. If for some reason you want to switch off search engines, then you can do that, but probably you're going to want people to find your site, so I would leave that unticked. And then you just press install WordPress. If you've got LastPass going, it might remember your password. So I will just do that. And then you log in. Hopefully you've remembered the password. I've got LastPass here, so I'm going to pop that in. It's got the username wrong. Oh well. So just put the username and password that you entered. Remember me if you want to be remembered on this machine, and then log in. And this will take you to the WordPress dashboard. And this is where we're going to start looking through the functionality of WordPress in the next video. See you there. So this is the WordPress dashboard, and this is where you're going to be spending most of your time when you're working with WordPress. In this video, I'll give you a quick tour of the main parts of the dashboard and show you how to manage and set up your site. You might be wondering at this point what your site actually looks like, and we can see it by hovering over example WordPress site, and I'm just going to command click or control click on Windows Visit Site to open it up in a new tab. So this is it. So you can see we've got the site title there, example WordPress site, and we've got just another WordPress site. We'll see how to change that in a moment. And then our basic setup is quite blog-like. So we've got our first blog post here, which has been generated for us. And then we've got a search button and some recent posts down here on the side, as well as log out, site admin, etc. So it doesn't look like much, but don't worry, we can change it into something beautiful very easily. But before we worry about beauty, let's get the site working as we'd like. So first off, you can see this update option at the top there. You may or may not see that depending on what version you've got installed, but it's definitely well worth keeping your WordPress up to date. If you let it get out of date, it'll get very vulnerable to hackers. Because WordPress is so popular, hackers target WordPress sites, especially out of date ones. Fortunately though, you can update within WordPress. You don't need to download the files and re-upload them or anything like that. It all happens within the system. So you just have to click the button and then let the update happen. There we go. Okay, so back to the dashboard. I'm going to work our way down the menu on the left there. So actually this homepage you probably won't use a great deal, although it does have some handy quick links. But I'm going to start by looking at posts. So you'll only really be interested in posts if you are actually making a blog. But if you are, this is where you'll write your blog posts. So if we click on the example one there, that will take us to the edit screen where we can change the post title and we can change the permalink as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. And we've got the main content of our blog post here. So we can just start typing something like that. And we can use formatting as well. But because we're coders, we're probably going to prefer the text version, which allows us to use HTML to make our posts look however we want. From here, while you're writing your post, you can preview the changes, and that will then load up your changes without actually posting them on the site. But when you're ready, you can then update that post, and then it will be live on your actual website. Once you've done that, one really handy feature of WordPress is that you can go back. So if you click Browse next to Revisions, you can actually revert to a previous version. So if you want to get rid of those changes, you just go back and you can see the changes and restore the autosave. And then update again, and then your changes will be undone. So that's really handy if you want to go back and revert to an older version. We can then choose a bunch of formatting options. So we can have it as an image, a video, a quote, link, a gallery, even audio and chat as well. So you can experiment with those different post types, but normally we're going to stick with the standard. Next up is categories. These are really useful ways to categorize your blog posts. So you might have a funny category, for example, or I don't know, a world news category if you were doing a news website, something like that. And then your users can view those specific categories very easily and search them as well. I've used categories on several occasions when I'm not actually doing a blog site. For example, if you were building a quiz website, you could use a WordPress plugin and then each post would represent a quiz. So don't be fooled into thinking that posts are exclusively for blogs. You can use them to display any kind of content. And then further down here, we've got tags, which are much like categories, but we can assign them more arbitrarily. So if we were writing an article about coding, we might have HTML, JavaScript, and fun as being our tags, something like that. And then once again, the users can search within the tags, just like they can with categories, but it's a bit less formal and we can assign them wherever we like. Again, you could use tags to have ways of categorizing quiz questions or your worksheets, whatever it was that you wanted to share on your site, not necessarily just blog posts. And finally, we can set a featured image there, which is as simple as just uploading a file and then extracting it from the media library. Now, I mentioned the permalinks earlier. So by default, the pages look like this with a not particularly friendly looking URL at the end there. So if you click change permalinks, then you can set them up to have a date or a month or have a numeric look like that. I normally go for the very simple post name, and then that will just give a URL that looks like that, which is a bit friendlier and more shareable. So let's save our permalink settings. And then I'll just go back and refresh the page here, and let's see what this link has changed to. You can see it's a much nicer now /hello world. And I could change that if I wanted. If I didn't want the hyphen in there, then I could just change that and click OK. And then update, and that's all saved. So that's how posts work. We've looked at categories and tags as well, although you can edit them directly on those pages. You don't have to edit them within a post page. Now, media is much what we saw just now. Normally, I don't look at the media library specifically, but when I want to add an item to a post, I just use the option right there. So if we edit again, so if I want to add some media here, I would just click Add Media, and that takes me to the media library. But if you want to specifically manage your media, then you might want to do it there. Pages then are slightly different to posts. They look very similar. So we've got a sample page here. And if we edit that, you can see we've got some nice default content there. And let's have a little look at our sample page as well. So I just command clicked there to open it up in a new tab. And you can see it looks like this. So pages are different to posts because they're intended to store more permanent content. So to use my quiz website example again, you might use your pages to have a contact form, an about page, or a list of all the quizzes that are available, and then you might store the quizzes themselves on posts. So they are different in function, although in form they're pretty similar, and we can edit them in the same way, set up a featured image, although we don't generally assign them to categories because they're more standalone. All right, then we've got comments, which again may be useful for you if you're running a blog of some sort, but if you're not, you may want to disable comments. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But here we've got our sample comment, which we can either unapprove, reply to, or send to spam. Now, the appearance tab is where things get really interesting. So I'm going to save themes for the next video, but this is where we would add a new theme where we can completely change the look of our site, and also where we would customize what appears in various places. That's a pretty meaty topic in itself though, so we're going to do that separately in the next video. Plugins. We'll have a quick look at what plugins are installed by default. Most of these you won't be using directly, but they are working in the background. But WordPress has a huge community that are building plugins. And if we do a quick search for WordPress plugins, find 43,000 plugins are available. So we've got bbPress forum software, caching software that speeds up your site, BuddyPress turns your site into a social network, theme check to make sure your theme is working correctly, and there's a lot more in there. Almost anything you could want to do with a website, you can probably find a WordPress plugin that does it. The plugin ecosystem is one of the best reasons to develop with WordPress and really can save a huge amount of time when creating things like contact forms, login systems, or social features. Speaking of which, we can add users to our sites as well. So most sites you probably won't want to have users, but you might want to have, for example, a single admin who may be you, who is able to manage the site, and then your client might want to be a member of the site as well. So I've just put some example usernames in there, and then they can be a number of different roles. So they can be a subscriber, a contributor, author, editor, or administrator. With most clients, you'd probably want to make them an editor, which means that they could edit the site themselves without having access to advanced features with which they might break the site. Again, one of the best features of WordPress is that clients are able to update the content without actually having to know any code at all. So that's generally how you'll use users. But as I say, you can use WordPress to create login websites as well, which means that features like password resets and secure login systems are set up for you by default. Moving swiftly on, tools, we're going to jump over because there's nothing particularly useful for us there. But settings, it is worth, whenever you set up a new WordPress site, to just quickly go through the settings. So we'll start at General. This is where the tagline, just another WordPress site, is put. So you'll probably want to change that to something which explains what your website does a little bit. This is our WordPress URL. And at the moment, registration is switched off. We might want to switch that on to allow people to register and comment. But we could also allow people to even be an editor or an administrator when they sign up. Change the time zone, date format, and a bunch of other stuff that we're probably not that interested in. The writing settings, I don't normally go in and edit these very much, but you can actually post via email if you want to, but we'll jump over that and go to read, where there's one important setting, and that's what you want your front page to display. So by default, it displays your latest posts, but you might well want to have a static front page. And there we can set that to our sample page if you want. And then that will mean that your home page is no longer a list of posts, but some content instead. So if you're not creating a blog, then that's going to be likely the way that you want to set things up. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know about WordPress. As a web developer though, most of your work is going to be in changing the appearance of the site. So you'll want to set up firstly a good looking site, but also one that has the functionality that you or your client want and has all the links and the options in the right places. So we do most of that with working with themes. Now that you're familiar with the WordPress dashboard, let's take a look at how themes work with WordPress and how we can use them to customize the look of our site and create a great looking website very quickly. So like with the plugin ecosystem, WordPress has a huge theme ecosystem, which we can see at wordpress.org/themes. Now all of the themes on wordpress.org are completely free, so any of these we can recreate with the touch of a button. We can also look at the most popular themes to get an idea of what some of the best themes might be. And we can search by filter as well. So we can look for specific color schemes, specific layouts, specific features or subjects, or even just search for a general topic. So if, for example, we were looking for a business theme, then we could search for those and add whichever one we like the look of. We can do that within WordPress itself. So any theme that we find on here, we can search for within WordPress. So to add a new theme, we click Add New in the WordPress Appearance Themes section. And then we get all of the search options that we just saw on wordpress.org. And we get a bunch of the most popular themes as well. I'm going to, for the moment, choose Serif Light, and we'll just see how we can customize this particular theme as an example. So just like with plugins and updates, we can install themes without having to download any files. We can just click Activate there, and then that will make the theme happen. We can use live preview if we want to see what it looks like before actually making it live. But as we're just developing, we might as well go for the whole thing. So you can see there that's changed the look of our site, but it hasn't changed the content. Already though, I think it looks a lot nicer. So once you've chosen your theme, it's time to get to work customizing it. So this particular theme has a Get Started link, which has an FAQ about how to do various things, which is one of the things I like about it. Some themes will have this, some won't, but it also has some actions required to set it up. So let's follow those steps. So first off, Serif Light, like a lot of themes, comes with a homepage template. But to see that, we'll need to change the reading settings to your latest posts. So you might remember we changed that to show our particular page. So we'll just change that back to front page displays latest posts, save changes, and then we'll do a refresh. And we should now see the default Serif homepage. And there we go. So you can see this might not be the sort of site that we're looking for, but if it is, we do have something that looks pretty impressive just from a couple of clicks. We're going to want to customize the content here though, so let's see how we do that. We'll go back to Appearance and About Serif Lite, and Actions Required. So some themes come with specific plugins, and this one requests that we install Pirate Forms, which is a particular form plugin that makes the form setup management process much easier. So I'm just going to go through the process and activate that particular plugin. And then let's go back to About Serif Lite and see if we've done all the setup steps. We've still got one more thing to go. So let's actually just check that the contact form is working. So we'll do a refresh and make sure it looks good. There we go, it looks really nice. If we want to customize that form, then once you install a plugin, then usually under Settings, you'll see an option for that new plugin. So we go to Settings and Pirate Forms, and then we can see how to add our form to any page. We just use that code. This is known as a shortcode, and quite a few plugins use this. So it's square brackets with some words inside to produce some content, in this case a form. And then we've got various options. So if I was going to use this, I'd definitely want to change the email address there. Some other options, I can change which fields are displayed and whether or not they're required, the labels for those fields, the messages that will be sent, and any SMTP settings if I want to use a particular email server to send your emails. All right, so now that we've set up Pirate Forms, let's go back to Appearance and click on Customize. So pretty much every theme will have a bunch of options, and most of those will edit through the WordPress customizer. Now the great thing about this is that we can see the results of the changes that we make immediately, before they're even published on the site. So if we click, for example, Site Identity, then we could upload a logo, we can change the title and the tagline, and we can upload an icon, which is what appears in the browser tab up there, if we wanted to. Okay. Changing the section order and colors in this case is only available on the Pro version of the theme. And if you like this theme, it's well worth buying the Pro version, but we'll stick to the free options for the moment. So general settings, you might want to change these to increase the performance of the site, or the scrolling behavior, or indeed the accessibility. And copyright, we could put whatever we like in there, and then it will appear right down there at the bottom. If we wanted to put the copyright symbol, we can use the HTML code ampersand copy semicolon, and there it is. Okay, we can also edit the footer social icons. So you could put in your own Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Behance, Dribbble and Instagram links. And if you don't want them to appear, if you don't have a Dribbble account, for example, you can just make them blank and then they'll disappear. We can also change the footer content here. So you can add your address, edit the address icon, and similarly for the email section and the phone number. Note the special href here. It's got a TEL in front of it, and that means that if you click on that on your phone, it will actually phone that number. Okay, so that's the footer options. I'm going to speed through the rest of the options. So here we can edit the title on the home page. Something like that. We can change what those links say. And where they go as well. We can add extra images to the slider. And if we've got the Pro version, we can have a background video here as well. And then we can edit the particular sections. So here we've got our focus. So the title is currently features, and then you've got a subtitle here. And again, you can edit it live, and you can choose to hide that particular section if you want as well. And you can edit each of these content blocks just by changing the title, text, where you want the link to go, and the logo image. That's all pretty straightforward. The other sections then work in a very similar way, so we won't look at those specifically, but we've got the About section, which we can edit all of that. The Your Team section, again, we can customize that and hide it if we don't want it. Testimonials as well, we can hide that. And then the latest news is where our blog posts will go if we've got any. Then we've got the contact form, and then we can change the background image for the contact form section. And I'm actually going to look at menus and widgets on a separate page, so we won't look at those here. And the static front page just allows us to use our own page rather than this one as the home page if we want to. So not all themes will have all of those options. Some will have different options, but all of them will have a customizer that allows you to edit colors, content. Okay, so we're nearly there with our customizing. We're going to go back and just look at two more sections in Appearance, which are going to be relevant regardless of which theme you're working with. And the first of those is widgets here. Now, most WordPress themes have two main sections for widgets. They have a sidebar, which isn't actually visible here, but other pages may well have it. If I click sample page, for example, that will jump to the sample page and you can see the sidebar here. And they also have a footer along the bottom. And usually you can edit the sidebar and the footer using widgets. So here you can see we've got all these widgets in our sidebar. At the top, we've got a search bar, which is there. And then we've got our recent posts, which we can customize and give a particular title to, comments, archives, categories, meta, etc. So say we didn't want to give a meta section, we could just delete that there. And say instead of that, we wanted to put some text at the bottom of our sidebar. Then we can just add a text widget and put in any HTML we like. And let's just have a quick refresh. And there it is. So there's our text and our text or HTML. So if there are custom things that you want to put in the sidebar, like login forms or something like that, then there are plugins to allow you to do that. But most themes will also come with a set of widgets, like the Serif ones here as well. And then we can do the same thing in the footer. So currently the footer section is blank, but we could put an extra widget in there if we like, and then that will appear in the footer. There it is. Not superbly aligned, we'd have to do a bit of work to make that look good, but you get the idea. So widgets are how you customize the sidebar and the footer. And the last major bit of customization you're probably going to want to do is to play around with the menus. So some themes will have a number of different menus. We can see that this one has just a single menu along the top there. And the nice thing about menus in WordPress is that if we add a new page, so just click add new, and then we might have an about us page. Which I can just create there and publish. See how quickly and easy it is to create a new page. Then not only do we then have that new page, but it will automatically appear in the menu up here as well. So that's really handy. But if we want to customize our menus, then we can edit that here. So say, for example, we don't want the sample page to appear in the menu, we'd just remove it there. Or we could also change the name that appears, or change anything we like about that menu. We can also create a new menu if we want, and then it might appear in the footer, for example, or in the sidebar. All fairly straightforward. The last thing I want to show you about appearance is the editor here. And we'll leave that page, we won't save our changes. Now this is where the real coding gets done. So this is the theme code here, which is mostly PHP, but we've got a lot of styles as well. And this is where you would edit the theme if you want to do some custom restyling or changing the content in a way that you can't do using the customizer or the widgets. Be aware though, it's easy to break stuff. So always take a backup of your site before you start editing these files. All right, so I hope you see then that at zero cost and just a few minutes of your time, you can create a completely custom site which looks good, is robust, and is easily editable by someone who doesn't know any code. Sometimes though, you're going to find that the free themes either don't offer the exact look that you want, or just are not quite good enough for you to use for a site of your own or make for a client. And the next stage up from that then are paid themes. And if you're wanting to make a site look really good, I would go straight to paid themes. There are lots of places to get them, but the biggest directory of paid themes online today is themeforest.net. And they've got a bunch of themes for all sorts of platforms, but we're particularly interested in the WordPress ones. So paid themes are normally around $50, $60. They're not big money, and the amount of time and effort that they'll save you and the higher quality product that you'll end up with, I think they're well worth it. So if we look at the best sellers, and I'll just switch to the grid view so we can get more on the screen, then any of these very popular themes are likely to work really well for you. So if we hover over them, then we can get a preview of how they look. Now the nice thing about the most popular themes is that they tend to have a range of different looks and styles. So you buy the theme as a whole, but then you can customize it to such an extent that you could make a whole range of different looking sites using the same theme. Bear in mind though, you will usually have to buy a separate copy of the theme for each site. So in short, if you want to get good looking WordPress websites up quickly, my advice would be to choose a premium WordPress theme that offers a range of different styles and become an expert in that particular theme. That will mean that you can use the various settings, options, and customization potential really quickly and get something that looks great up really fast. And although all of these themes will offer a great experience, the one that I'm going to work through with you is the X theme. So let's have a quick look at what the X theme does. Like all ThemeForest themes, we can use live preview to take a look at it in action. Let's just remove that frame so we can see the whole thing. So you can see we've got a great looking site first off, but we've got a number of sub-themes within the main theme. So integrity is the first option, which is a more sort of businessy looking site. Renew is another more flat design. Icon for blogs and online magazines. And Ethos for more stylish looking sites like this country living one here. But where it gets really exciting is when we look at the huge range of demos that are available. And I'm just going to click just a few of these to open them in a browser. So there are 10 or so demos for each of the main themes. And each of the themes supports WooCommerce for an online shop, which we'll be looking at in a couple of videos' time. BuddyPress, which we saw in the previous video for social networks websites, and BBPress for forum type sites. So let's have a quick look at those demos. There's the integrity one. Looks pretty good. That was the renew. theme, again, looks good, but looks completely different. And then here's the icon theme as well. So none of those three may be perfect for your particular site. The chances are you'll find something in here that's pretty close to what you want. And all of these come with a huge range of content types as well. So for example, if I pick another integrity demo, we'll be able to use this slider on any of our sites and a counter like that, background images and buttons like this, and blog layouts like this. So while the X theme is by no means unique in offering these things, I think the overall package is the most flexible that's available. And therefore, if you're going to become an expert on one particular theme, I'd go for the X theme. And that's what we'll be using in the next few videos, where we'll be creating and customizing a couple of completely different sites. All right, so now I'm going to lead you through the process of setting up X and customizing it to create a great looking blog website. If you don't already have a blog or some sort of portfolio site, then I'd thoroughly recommend getting one online, whether you use the X theme or not. There's no better time to start building your online portfolio and growing your profile than right now. So once you've purchased the theme, you can download it from ThemeForest directly, or you can go to community.theme.co and get an account there. And that's what I've done. And I'm then going to click download X, and obviously you should download whatever the latest version is. While we're here as well, I should say that there's a really good knowledge base for X, which shows you how to set up the demo content, the child themes, WooCommerce, and a whole load of other features that come with the theme as well. This is another big advantage of buying these themes. Because they're so popular, they come with a huge amount of help and guidance. And if there's anything that you can't find in the knowledge base, you can check out the forum as well. And each purchase of the theme comes with 6 months support within the forum. All right, so we've now got our x.zip folder. How do we get that into our WordPress installation? Well, we go back to Appearance and Themes. And then we add a new theme. But this time, instead of searching on WordPress.org, we're going to upload a theme. So then we choose the file. So that's x.zip. And install now. And that will then upload the file to WordPress and install the theme for us. And let's activate it once again. And here we go. So we're now installed, but we do have an extension to add. Cornerstone is essentially X's version of the customizer and allows us to customize the page, but in a more powerful way than we can with the default WordPress customizer. So just click Install Plugin, and that will do all the work for you. And there we go. So that's now set up for us. So now we want to get our site looking good. And it's pretty easy to start doing that with X. We just click Demo Content, and that will allow us to set up any of the demos that exist on the X theme website. So your usual process here is likely to be to click through a number of these demos and find the one which is closest to the sort of site that you want to make. We want to make a blog, so I quite liked the look of Renew 5 that we saw very briefly in the previous video. You're very welcome, of course, to choose a different theme if you like, but we'll be working with this one. So very straightforward to set up. We just click Renew 5. And then I would generally recommend, if you're starting with a new site, to import the posts and the portfolio items. I should add as well that X has added some expanded demos, which you can see at the bottom of the demos page. And the advantage of these is that they contain not just a general layout for your page, but all of the content as well. So if you're wanting to set up, for example, a church website, you could use the expanded demo and you would get all of this content set up for you immediately. Now, there aren't that many expanded demos right now, but more are coming. And if it happens that you want to make a site that looks pretty close to one of those, that will definitely make your life a lot easier. but we'll focus on the standard demos for the moment. So I'll just click back to renew 5, and then, yep, we're happy to overwrite everything that we've set up so far. While that's going, I'll just clear up my tabs a little bit. And there we go. That's done. So let's have a look and see what our site looks like now. And here we go. So you can see that it already has the look and feel of that theme. And hopefully you're getting the idea with WordPress that design and content are completely separated. So we've had 3 completely different looking sites here, pretty much exactly the same content, just by changing the theme. Notice also that with these themes, you don't get the images included. You will have to add those yourself. All right, so let's do a little bit of customization. So I've just clicked edit with Cornerstone there. And here we go. You can see it looks pretty similar to the WordPress customizer, but it's got a lot more features. So just like with the customizer, we can select particular sections and then customize them. So we can change the name of the section if we really want to. And then this section is made up of 2 rows. So we can edit that first section, that first row. We could change the text there. We can change the size of the text. Change the color, alignment, and we can specify some specific IDs, classes, or styles if we want to get a little bit more codey. And we can do the same thing with all of the elements here just by clicking on them. So we could change that text there. Maybe I've got a mailing list I want them to sign up to. And as before, we can change the link and the type of button, size, etc., etc. The X theme has a number of icons built in as well, so we can change those if we fancy to. And again, we can choose an ID, class, or style. Scrolling down, we can change the image and obviously upload a new image if we want to, which we do using the standard media library within WordPress. And we can change all the other options as well. So I'm not going to run through everything on this page. I'm sure you get the idea how it works, but there are a couple of other cool features I'd like to show you. We can choose a template from the various options. So if we want to add a pricing plans page, for example, then we can add that, and that will overwrite everything that we've got here and add a nice looking pricing plans page with an FAQ at the bottom as well. And I should point out that this is responsive too, so it will look good on any screen size, and you can see here that the menu has changed into a drop-down one because we're on a relatively narrow screen. And we can insert any of these blocks to add some standard layouts to our pages too. So I'm just going to change that to an about page. And you can see that again, we've got some nicely laid out default content, which we could get rid of anything that we didn't need and change the text and content for anything that we did. So it's pretty easy to add new content blocks as well. Within those content blocks, if we click on elements, then we can add smaller bits of content. So say we want an alert. Let's pop it underneath our core values. So we're familiar with alerts now from Bootstrap. X-theme alerts have a slightly different style, but you get the idea. We can put the title and content, and again, change the padding and everything else. And we can change the alert type from a success to an information to a warning to a danger as well, and even add a close button so that the user can get rid of the alert if they want to. So these are the various different elements. Should be reasonably familiar with most of these element types. But again, we can add them just with a simple drag and drop to our code. The third option along the top is a search, which just allows you to click on anything on the page and then edit it in the way that we've seen. And the fourth option is settings, which allows you to put some custom CSS and JavaScript in there if you want to, but also to change the main settings of the page. So I might make that Rob's blog. And we can change various other settings if we want to as well. From headings to paragraphs. All right, so I hope that gives you an overview of how we add content to our site. Once we've done so, we click the Save button, which will then update everything to our live site. And if we take a look, we should be able to see all of that in practice. There we go. So if I was making this my homepage, I'd keep things pretty simple. So I'd get rid of that alert just by clicking delete. And then change the text to something more relevant, and then update the content here to whatever I wanted. And I would recommend doing something similar if you were going to create a portfolio page of your own to talk about what you do and what you're interested in. And then you can just save that. And you've spent, therefore, a very minimal amount of time setting up your site, which means you can spend a lot more time on your content, which is where you should really focus your efforts. So you can see the blog already looks pretty good. We've got a few demo blog posts in there already. And of course, if you want to edit those, you do that in the standard WordPress way. So you just go to posts and then you can edit them here. And the nice thing about these demos is that you can use them essentially as templates. So if you want to have a video post, then you could start with that one and copy it, or at least see how it's set up with the video, and then edit it to change it to whatever content you want. And the final thing to show you then is we've got a new option down the side here, Portfolio. So the X theme has portfolios built in. And of course, if you want to show off your web design or app development skills, a portfolio is a great way to do it. You can see we've got a portfolio here on the left in this demo. And we need to add some content before those will display. But essentially, each of these would be a picture of a website you've made, or a photograph you've taken, or a song that you've written, whatever it is that you're trying to show others that you can do really well. So that's pretty much it. There's an obvious challenge from this video, and that is go and build a portfolio or blog website of your own. It's pretty easy, it doesn't take that long, and it's well worth having online, regardless of whether you want to be a web developer or an artist or an accountant. Online portfolio of your own to tell the world about who you are and what you can do is an extremely valuable thing. So go and make one, and when you've done it, let me know about it on Twitter and I'll retweet. The second sort of site I'm going to show you how to set up with WordPress is an e-commerce site or an online shop. Like a blog, this is the sort of site that if you're coding from scratch, it actually takes you a really long time to set up. You've got to have a system for adding and managing products, integrating payment systems, and managing customer accounts. With WordPress though, it's really simple. Now what we're doing here is not actually specific to the X theme. You could use any theme to do this, but the X theme does support the plugin that we're about to use very well. So we're going to add a new plugin There are a number of online shop plugins that we could use, but there's one that's become almost the standard, and that is WooCommerce. So it's free to use at the basic level, but it has all the options that you would want in an online shop. So there it is. Good ratings, over 1 million installs. It's very widely used. So it'd be definitely what I would recommend if you want to set up an online shop. If you're not sure that you would want to set up an online shop, by the way, I really would encourage you to sell something on your website. I really don't mind what it is, and you might feel that you don't have anything worth selling, but it's a really good experience to start selling something small online. It might be that you could write a book explaining how to do something, you could create art and sell that, or even create a WordPress theme or plugin and sell that on your site as well. It's a really great experience to create and market a product. Thoroughly recommend you give it a go if you can think of anything at all you might want to create. All right, so we've got our WooCommerce plugin installed. Let's activate it and see how we set it up. Here we go. So WooCommerce has got a really nice and friendly setup process. So first off, it creates these default pages for us. So the shopping page, basket, checkout, and my account. Again, just imagine how much work it would be to set all of this up if you weren't using some sort of plugin like this. Okay, then we just put in some options for our shop. I'll keep those at the defaults. And then shipping and tax, those are up to you. I definitely recommend selling digital products if you possibly can, just because they're so much less hassle than physical ones. Now here you can add your PayPal email address. I would recommend PayPal. It's a simple way of accepting payments online, and I would avoid these options unless you really have to offer them for some reason. I'll skip that for now though. And there we go. I'm going to allow WooCommerce to take some diagnostic data. Seems only fair. And then I'm going to create my first project. So let's imagine that I've written a book on how to create an online shop with WooCommerce. Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. So a quick description. Yep. We get the idea. So you can offer product categories, put in a price, and even schedule various sale options. Put in another description. If you're working with physical products, then you can manage the stock there as well. Work out what you're going to charge for shipping. You can even link products in a sort of recommended way. So if they're looking at buying this book, they might want to buy a similar book that you've written. And you can change some other settings for products as well. You can also add an image, choose categories in just the same way that we have post categories, and then you can publish your product. Here we go, and let's have a look at the product in action. There it is. So you can see we've got a review system set up, and it already looks pretty nice. And I can then add it to my basket. Then view my basket. You can give out coupon codes if you want. Proceed to checkout. Put in your billing details. And then place order. So within just a few clicks, you've got a complete shopping system set up on your website. You'll notice that the shop doesn't appear automatically on the menu on the side there. So we'll need to add that. Let's go back to the dashboard. And then we'll look at appearance and menus. And here's our menu down the left there. So I want to add the shop to it. So I just click on the shop page, add to menu, and save menu. So as well as using Cornerstone to edit our pages, we can still use all of the standard theme editing options as well. So now if we refresh that, we should see the shop in the menu. There we go. And this is where all of our products would display, with ideally some nice pretty images as well. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The great advantage of using something like WordPress along with a premium plugin like X and an online shop plugin like WooCommerce is that it enables you to set up the bones of a standard site very, very easily, so you can spend your time doing more interesting things like creating great products for people to buy or great blog posts for people to read. In the next video, I'll set you the challenge for this section. I think you can probably guess what the challenge for this section is going to be. I've shown you how to set up a simple site with the X theme and also with the free Serif theme. And then we've seen how to customize that and then add a blog and a portfolio and even an online shop. So my challenge for you is to customize a real site of your own. Now this could be a site for you, perhaps a blog about something that you're interested in, perhaps a portfolio of your artwork or music, or a site to sell a digital product that you've made. Or if there's really nothing that comes to mind that you'd like to share with the world, ask around, help a friend create a website, or help someone you know build a website for their business or charity or local organization. It's not about getting paid for it at this point, it's about learning the ropes, adding to your portfolio. There's nothing like the pressure of having to create something the world will see to learn how to do things well. And as always, when you're done, send me a tweet about it and I'll pass on the word. Good luck.